Do you believe in a woman's right to choose?
Of course I do.
Do you think that is it
to choose how to access healthcare? You mean, like to choose
whether or not she can get an abortion?
What the heck does that have to do with free speech? Oh wait, nothing.
Michelle Ferreri said it best a couple of months ago. You know the Liberals are desperate when they start talking about abortion. This was on full display during the Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage, where they were supposed to be talking about free speech. But Liberal Tlaib Noor Mohammed started hounding Christine Van Geyn from the Canadian Constitution Foundation.
Let's take a look.
Mr. Giovanni, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, certainly this is a very important topic, and I appreciate the witnesses for being here. I do have some questions for Ms. Van Geyn, who I think gave an excellent set of opening remarks. And Ms. Van Geyn, I'd like to speak with you in particular about Justin Trudeau's censorship agenda, which has been implemented by the Liberal Party, certainly with help from the NDP. And when we talk about the censorship agenda, we're talking about primarily two pieces of legislation, Bill C-11 and C-18. Ms. Van Geyn, I'm sure you're familiar with them, but just for the sake of being on the same page, Bill C-11, of course, refers to the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, and the federal bureaucracy gaining more control over what Canadians can access on streaming platforms online. Bill C-18, of course, refers to Justin Trudeau and the federal bureaucracy having more control over the news that Canadians can see, which is limited access that Canadians have to news on platforms like Facebook and Instagram. So I'd like to start with just asking Ms. Van Geyn, do you share the concerns of many Canadians who are worried about Justin Trudeau's censorship agenda and Bill C-11 and C-18?
I would add to that list Bill C-63, which has the potential to be one of the most censorious pieces of legislation that I've seen in a really long time. C-63, the Online Harms Act, would increase penalties for criminalized speech and hate-motivated crimes to life in prison, which part of the concern around that is using these heightened penalties to overcharge criminal defendants and create pressure for plea deals for lower level offenses when there is an argument that the Crown might make that there is a hate element. Even if it's not present, it can be charged, and this overcharging leads to pressure to plead out. Another concern we have about C-63 is that it would allow for someone who fears a future hate crime speech, that they can request a judge to put conditions on the would-be speaker, things like an ankle monitor or even imprisonment. And this is for future speech that has not yet taken place. This is incredibly chilling. C-63 would also create a civil mechanism for people to complain about speech to the Human Rights Commission. It's a return of Section 13 of the Canada Human Rights Act, which was rightly repealed for dragging before the Commission journalists and members of the clergy. There is no cost to bringing a complaint, but there's great cost to the complained about. And we have seen human rights tribunals bring before them comedians. That's in a Quebec context. So giving this power to these commissions will chill expression. I did not have time in my 5 minutes to mention C-63, and I understand that there is a separate committee hearing that will address that, but I wanted to put on the record our serious concern about that. With respect to the Online News Act and the Online Streaming Act, while perhaps not censorship in the most classic form, I do share the concerns of millions of Canadians who have lost access to news as a result of the Online News Act. I share the concerns of a lot of academics and Canadian content creators about the regulation of user-generated content on social media platforms like YouTube. I'm a YouTube creator myself. I have one of the largest, I think probably the largest YouTube channel about Canadian constitutional law, perhaps niche.
If I could just ask
and it will censor that.
Ms. Van Geyn, if I could just ask a follow-up to that.
And if you're not following the CCF, that's a good channel to follow if you're really interested in the actual law aspect. Christine Van Geyn is a really intelligent lady, obviously an accomplished lawyer, and she came to committee to play. She's no joke. And we'd love to get her on Northern Perspective sometime, but she's a really busy lady. Fighting for the Constitution every day. We get it. We are also really busy as well. But want to applaud her in her resoluteness and her statements about freedom of expression. And sounds like she has come to the very same conclusions and added some more narrative to Bill C-63 than we have. And this is the trifecta: Bill C-11, Bill C-18, and Bill C-63. Bill C-11 is trying to control what you see. Bill C-18 is trying to control where you see it. And Bill C-63 is to make sure that what is said is in line with what the CRTC and the government of the day deems to be appropriate. It's a very scary trifecta of censorship bills.
The Trudeau Liberals very much like to misrepresent their censorship agenda as being solely focused on big corporations. But as you noted, it does include...
Mr. Chair. Well, I do want to hear Mr. Giovanni's question. He's making an assertion as to what our intention is, which I think is you have ruled before.
Well, you didn't let me finish the question, so you're getting ahead of yourself.
Didn't even need to get there.
I know you're an eager guy. I know you're an eager guy. So if I could just ask the question to Ms. Van Geyn, you mentioned that...
You wouldn't know that Jamil Giovanni's new.
No, he handles these Liberals like a seasoned pro. It's awesome, quite frankly.
And I think that's where the Liberals are kind of surprised. Like, Talie's been around for a little bit, and so the fact that Giovanni was like, no, it's fine. I know you're eager. Just simmer down there, Skippy. I think he was just taken aback. He was like, what? This guy's not supposed to be this confident. So, yeah.
But, it is great to have confident and capable MPs on the Conservative side.
What a thought.
Generated content is included in Justin Trudeau's censorship agenda, which law professor Michael Geist has detailed in a series of blogs explaining that it is not just a matter of focusing on corporations. What is the importance of this censorship agenda, including user-generated content?
A short answer of 20 seconds, please.
The effect is that it puts is the government putting its thumb on the scale of what content Canadians see, and that in itself is inherently censorious.
Mr. Noor Mohammed from the Liberal Party, 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My questions are for, I want to start by, first of all, thanking all of the witnesses for being here. And I'd like to start by asking Ms. Van Geyn, did I get your name correctly? Because people get my name wrong all the time. I must make sure I get it right. Is it Van Geyn or Van Geyn?
Share your issue. It's Van Geyn. Like
Van Geyn. Perfect. Thank you. I just want to, if you could just take a moment to clarify for me something that I want to make sure I heard correctly. When you were talking about Bill C-63, did you say that we were too tough, the law was too tough on hate speech?
Yeah, so
Okay.
I think that the issue is with statutizing the definition, which is an inherently subjective definition. I think that there's an issue with the ability to add a new penalty when there's another offense committed to basically overcharge defendants.
Got it. Okay, so
I can give
so,
you.
no, that's fine. So I guess what I want to dig into is what would you say to members of the Jewish community or the Muslim community who right now who are seeing incredible spikes in anti-Semitism and Islamophobia that is resulting in violent physical assaults on people and institutions? The argument many of them make is that hate speech leads to these things, these types of actions. Would you agree with that?
So
I mean, it depends, I guess, if you are saying to a group of people, hey, why don't you go do this bad thing against this other group of people? That's incitement to violence, right? We already have laws against that.
And that's not protected.
But if you're just like, hey, Bob over there is a jerk, and then a bunch of people start doing something bad to Bob, I mean, you're not telling them to go do something bad to Bob. You're not praising them for doing something bad to Bob. Those people are doing bad things to Bob of their own volition.
Well, and like, here's the thing. I hate it that the Liberals are talking about this issue like it's new. Like, you know, this is a new phenomenon. It's not new. Stuff like this has been going on for hundreds of years. It's been going on since Canada was young. But we haven't needed life in prison to handle people that have hate speech. And this is the problem. Like, as Tanya said, I don't care what group it is. I don't care if it's the LGBT community. I don't care if it's the Jewish community. I don't care if it's the Islamic community. Nobody has the right to incite people to violence against anyone.
Right. And that's where our current laws draw the line. I mean, once you say, hey, everybody, I think we should go attack Bob, well, that's an incitement to violence. That's where the law clearly defines you can't do that. But again, just calling Bob a name like, hey, everybody, Bob smells bad. Like, that's not against the law. You know what I mean? Nor should it be. I don't think we should be imprisoned for the words we say unless they're inciting people to violence.
And here's the problem. What does that mean? It means you have to allow some pretty ridiculous and disgusting things to be said.
Right. Worse than just Bob smells bad.
But this is the price. This is the price, right? Because as people have said over and over, bad ideas are best combated by better ideas. And you distill that in a crucible of conversation, you burn away the irrelevancies, and then you are left with the truth or the better idea winning in the end. That is really what this is all about. And when we have seen Canada get more and more divided, it's because conversation has been prevented from happening. This is what Garnet, Janice, and I was discussing the other day. The best way to bring people together is to allow conversation, is to allow difference of opinion, and to encourage conversation from people from completely different backgrounds. Because what you can then do is find common ground between them. You're not going to agree on everything, but the important part is to find that common ground. And this is the problem. But the far left Liberals, all they're concerned about is, well, if speech could lead to this, then we have to outlaw that. No.
What they're concerned about is feelings. It made me feel bad. Say I'm Bob. It made me feel bad to be told that I'm a jerk and I smell. But are you physically harmed? No. Are you threatened? Like, is somebody like, I'm going to come get you, Bob? No. Sometimes we have to be made to feel uncomfortable so that we can all have our rights.
We've all had terrible things said about us. And you know what? We were okay.
Well, and that's just it. I wish I had learned from a much younger age that words don't have magic powers and they can't hurt you.
Unless you give them that power to do so.
Right.
So violence is, of course, criminalized already. And I think that there's an issue with all kinds of things like bail conditions that repeat violent offenders are not actually put in prison. So please criminalize violence. Put people who commit violent acts.
No, but my question is, do you believe that there is a correlation between incitement and hate speech and people's responses, or do you think that people act independent of those two things?
So incitement to violence is also criminalized, and we take no issue with incitement to violence.
Okay. So
Boom.
Stick under that very well. And again, notice the tricky way that Talib said that. Do you believe that incitement to violence and hate speech leads to
Nope.
Two different things.
Right. Right now, under the law, those are two very different things. Again, it's like saying Bob's a jerk versus, hey, everybody, let's go physically harm Bob.
Well, and here's the problem, everybody. Line up 1,000 Canadians and you put earphones on all of them and you tap them on the shoulder one at a time. You say, what is hate speech? They will all have a different definition.
Well, and going back to Bill C-63, there is no definition of hate speech in that bill, and that's what makes it dangerous.
Let's just, I appreciate very much you speaking about the importance of freedom. Do you believe in freedom of expression as being beyond just words?
Of course.
Okay. So do you think that a woman should be able to wear a niqab?
Of course I do.
Do you think that it was inappropriate for the Conservative government to put forward in the last time that Stephen Harper was Prime Minister, do you think it was inappropriate for them to put forward a niqab ban on women?
I don't have a comment on that. I'm not familiar.
No, but I'm not asking you. So, okay. So you're not familiar with the proposed niqab ban?
I do not think that government should ban religious clothing.
So you just to confirm, you do not think that government should ever ban religious clothing, correct?
I do not think they should.
Okay.
The Quebec government is doing that now.
Do you believe in a woman's right to choose?
Of course I do.
Do you think that is it
to choose how to access healthcare? You mean like to choose
whether or not she can get an abortion?
What does this have to do with the topic at hand? This is
Zero.
just, I think it's because, and if you watch Christine on her channel, like, she's very middle of the road. Like, I would say she's like center conservative if I had to guess. I don't want to speak for her, but she's not like, really on one side or the other of this particular debate. I don't even think I've ever heard her bring it up. So I don't know why this would be brought up in committee.
Well, and she even said, like, she's pro-choice. And this is the problem, right? This is such a serious issue. Free speech. This is such a serious issue. And it is being eroded bill by bill by bill by Justin Trudeau and his Liberals and his NDP,
buddies.
lackeys. And they want to talk about abortion like, oh my God, it's going to be coming to an end. You just watch. Like, this is what they're saying.
Well, and Taliba's trying to paint it like Christine is somehow against abortion. Like, again, I have watched a lot of her channel, and I don't think I've ever heard her say it one way or the other. So why is he like trying to paint her in this light?
Well, and the reason why the Conservatives are, I would say, warm to her is because
she makes sense.
She makes sense. Because Conservatives are not for censorship.
Well,
wow.
And it's just, free speech is the most important right we have, because if they take that away, then we can't stand up against them taking any of our other rights away.
Well, because you're not allowed to.
Right. That's the point. That if you can't say to your government, no, stop, that's wrong, they can take away whatever rights they want.
Yes, that's my personal viewpoint.
Fantastic.
I do believe
does it concern you? Does it concern you that conservative governments in certain provinces, and does it concern you that members of the Conservative Party are seeking to legislate eliminating or taking away a woman's right to choose?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
I'm asking you specifically if a conservative.
We're talking about abortion right now.
I'm asking you because I'm asking you if you believe in that freedom.
What the connection is.
I'm asking you if
Mr.
you believe
Speaker,
in that
point of order
freedom.
here. What's the relevance to this?
Point of order?
Expression. Freedom of expression. Expression takes different forms. Well, I've asked the question, and as you well
Yeah,
know,
but
I'm
you're
just asking-
pounding her now. That's the point.
Oh, now you're concerned. Okay, great. Okay, let's.
I don't feel hounded. I just don't understand.
Okay, let me ask the question differently.
I believe people have the right to express their views on abortion.
Okay.
And that's the difference. She believes that people have a right to express their views on abortion. Right. So you have the right to say, I agree with it, and you have the right to say that I don't agree with it.
Right, and you shouldn't go to jail for saying one or the other.
But this is like saying, do you believe that that people should have the right to go to the hospital and get their broken leg repaired? What the heck does that have to do with free speech? Oh, wait, nothing.
Well, and furthermore, freedom of expression is usually for things that are written or drawn. For example, if I wanted to paint a mural on the side of my house that had, some vulgar gesture on it, can I do that? Freedom of expression, right?
You sure can.
Well, I suppose if you don't have a homeowners association, which we don't.
Well, and freedom of expression is, let's just break that down. Freedom of expression. Freedom to express what?
Anything you want, right? I mean,
Right.
look at how subjective art is. I mean, you might go to an art museum and look at an installation and go, wow, that's really vulgar and crude. I don't like that. And the next person might come along and go, oh, wow, this is like amazing art. That's why, like, we have freedom of expression, and that ties itself in with freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is what's said. Freedom of expression, as I said, is more of what's written or what's drawn or what's created.
Like, freedom of expression is essentially saying you have the freedom to express an idea. And that could be through speech, that could be through written form, that could be through content, that could be through art, it could be through anything. That's essentially what it means. When you're talking about, do you think women have a right to abortion? That's not an idea. That's like an action. That's a healthcare procedure.
Yeah, I'd be like, do I have a right to kick my husband in the knee? Like, that's like, it's an action.
It's just, this is just...
Well, and Talib is just, he's trying to make his own points. Again, I do smell an election coming, because why are they bringing up abortion in a committee that has no reason to bring up abortion?
Because they are terrified.
Do you believe that people have the right to legislate whether or not a woman has the right to choose?
That's not freedom of expression.
No, it's not.
Like,
I mean, we as Canadians give up, I don't even want to say we give anything up, but we entrust 343 individuals in this country to create the laws for us. That's what our House of Commons does. So it's up to them as to which laws they create. And it's up to us as Canadians to participate in that process by speaking with our MPs, by writing briefs for committee, by appearing as witnesses. And that's how our democracy works.
well, and it's just, and let me just touch on what he said. Do you believe that, governments have the right to legislate? Yeah, they do. They do have the right to legislate to ensure that abortion is legal or to ensure that abortion is banned.
I don't believe that the government should have the right to legislate the removal of my free speech, but that's what the Liberals are currently trying to do.
But here's the thing. But they do. They do have the right.
Right.
And it's not even the right, it's the ability.
Yeah, they have the ability. And that's why, as Canadians, we need to get together and use our right to free speech to express how we don't like that.
But it's similar in a way. They have the ability to legislate anything because they should have the ability to legislate anything. Now, are you going to get bad laws? Yeah.
But that's what the Senate is for. The Senate is to stop those bad laws and make sure that they don't violate our Constitution.
But what you also can then have is another government that puts in some legislation to remove that bad law.
Right.
But the point is they have to have the ability to do both. Just like you have to have the ability to express yourself however you see fit, as long as it is not inciting to violence. And that means you're going to say some good things and you're going to say some terrible things. But both need to be allowed.
I mean, now you're talking about sort of parliamentary sovereignty issues, which are well beyond the scope of, Parliament can legislate on all kinds of things, and then they're put in check by the Supreme Court. I really don't.
Okay, so
do legislation as, like, Parliament is sovereign.
So if Parliament decided, so if Parliament decided to do certain things and pass certain laws, then that would be sovereign. And that would be the law, and that's what we should all adhere to, and there should be no opposition. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm a little confused by the line of questioning. Parliament can legislate. Legislation is subject to our Constitution, which can then be reviewed by the court.
So we can get more into this later. Are you concerned?
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens when you have someone who went to school for public policy and hasn't really had a real job questioning a lawyer about law. Not even just that. Questioning a lawyer who is the director of litigation at the Canadian Constitution Foundation.
It's like Talib brought a spoon to a battle of wits.
Like, What did you think was going to happen there? You were going to school her on law? Like, I honestly think he was trying to get her to say that the government shouldn't be able to legislate against abortion. I'm pretty sure that's where he was trying to go.
That's probably what he was trying to do. Even though this committee has absolutely nothing to do with that, that's probably what he was trying to trap Christine into saying.
And I don't believe that Christine was skating. I believe that Christine was legitimately confused as to what the heck kind of line of questioning is this? We're supposed to be talking about free speech, and you're talking about, parliamentary sovereignty and the ability to create legislation. It has nothing to do with freedom of expression. So, we're with you, Christine.
Or were you concerned when the former premier of New Brunswick, who has recently transitioned into being the former premier, and Premier Moen in Nova Scotia, are trying to put restrictions on a child's right to use the pronouns that they want to use?
That's an issue that we haven't taken a position on at the CCF.
I'm asking you your opinion, though. I'm asking you your opinion.
I'm here speaking as a representative of an organization. I'm not going to give you my opinion on that particular issue, which is a live issue.
Okay.
Good answer. Good answer.
Also, it's not that they're putting restrictions on the children being able to use pronouns. It's that the parents need to be involved.
Right.
I mean...
And this is the gaslighting that they're doing. And
right.
the straight up lying.
Well, and they're painting it as something that it's not. As a parent, I would want to be involved in a decision like that my child is making.
You want to talk about rights, Talib? How about the parent's right to actually know what the heck is going on with their kid at school? Their parent's right to understand if their kid is being indoctrinated about what they're wearing just because, a boy might like pink. You may have these people at school saying, maybe you're choosing to be a girl. And this is the problem. You don't know.
Well, and it goes beyond that. It's even, what if my child is being bullied? And that's maybe why they've decided to change their pronouns. There's so many issues with this. And parents just want to be involved. The left paints parents as just hateful and horrible towards their kids, but parents just want to be involved. We just want to know what's going on with our children. We just want to be in their lives, and we just want what's best for them.
Right.
And my final question to you.
You're at 5:10, so I got to move on. Mr. Courig for 4 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and appreciate our witnesses being here, although I do find it astounding that that the NDP and Dr. Geyn just suggested that for somehow the leader of the opposition was guilty of a criminal offense for standing up for Jews having the right to their own state. I would, however, Ms. Van Geyn, Bill C-11.
Point of order.
Point of order. Ms. Ashton?
Yeah, I think we need to be accurate. Nobody said such a thing. And the quote that I shared was with respect to Israel's bombing. Let the record show exactly what was said rather than conservative interpretations.
Okay, move on. Mr. Courig, please.
Canadians can judge for themselves. Ms. Van Geyn, when it comes to Bill C-11, do you see it in conflict with the basic freedoms that Canadians are guaranteed in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms?
I do. I do have issues with C-11. In particular, the ability of the CRTC to regulate user-generated content. That, I think, is the biggest concern. The analogy that a lot of us who are online content creators, Canadians, have given is if a bookstore is ordered by the government to put certain books in the window and certain books at the back, would we view that as a censorious government act? And that is the analogy that a lot of us in that ecosystem have been using related to what the C-11 CRTC power to put its thumb on the algorithm is doing.
If I could, just because time is so short, it's been described largely as backdoor censorship. The Justin Trudeau and the Liberal censorship agenda. They're not telling people that they can't believe something, but they're restricting through technological means, algorithms, the content that's available. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that you could describe it as backdoor censorship. It's not censorship in the classic form, but it's a big problem.
Again, we've talked about this at length. So are they prohibiting you from seeing channels like Northern Perspective if you're not subscribed to them?
No.
Nope. But
It's not going to show up in your feed.
it's not going to get suggested to you.
Right.
So it'll be there, but you would actually have to go and search for it. So people that would have otherwise been showed channels like Northern Perspective or the Canadian Constitution Foundation or any number of other channels, you wouldn't otherwise see them because we don't get to be counted as Canadian content, despite the fact that we're Canadian and despite the fact that the content that we're making is focused on Canadians.
And that it's all filmed here in Canada.
Right, but it doesn't count according to the CRTC. And the problem is who gets to decide what counts when it comes to the CRTC? Well, the government and the CRTC.
And now would probably be a really good time to remind everybody to check your subscription. Make sure you're subscribed and ring that notification bell so you have all notifications turned on.
Half of our viewers are not subscribed. So please get subscribed so you can continue to get the notifications for our videos. A lot of people are saying they're not seeing any notifications. Double check that you're notified. Double check you're subscribed because people keep falling off of the channel. Make sure you're subscribed. Anyway, let's keep going.
Thank you for that. And now I'm curious about C-18. Again, do you see C-18 as being in conflict with the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and the freedoms guaranteed for Canadians in it?
So it kind of depends on how the regulations are going to be interpreted with respect to the Online News Act. I think that it's not censorship in the classic form that we think of, but depending on how it's operationalized, there could be a charter case to be made against that particular piece of legislation.
Did you find it deeply problematic, or did you find it problematic that that as a result of C-18, news content basically on some of the most used social media apps in the country was eliminated, restricting Canadians' ability to see what was happening in the world?
Yes. I mean, this was in direct response to government action. Meta took the action of blocking news on Canadian versions of their platforms, including Facebook and Instagram, and millions of Canadians were accessing news that way. It actually undermines the ability of the free press to function because of the loss of clicks, which is how some of their revenue was being generated. Sharing news is not a threat to the news industry.
But the news industry asked for Bill C-11.
This is the most bizarre thing about this whole thing. It's not bizarre. So the news content creation organizations typically belong to some of the media giants in Canada. Okay, so gone are the days when you had basically these news agencies as independent.
Yeah, you don't have like small little printing presses in these small little towns anymore. They're all under the umbrella of these huge conglomerates. And
it was basically the telecom and the cable companies that bought them all. Okay? Post Media might be, the only independent one from one of these. Anyhow, so they were lobbying the government this whole time. And I'm thinking, like, they thought they could push everybody around because they push everybody around in Canada. Why not? Let's push people around in the United States, like Google and Facebook. Never mind the fact that Google is bigger than all of them combined, and then some, probably times 4. So that's probably what they thought. And then they put the law in, and the law basically said to Facebook, if you don't sign deals, these forced deals with the news agencies, then you can't put news related items onto Facebook.
Not that they couldn't, it's that they would be fined.
Right.
Like these huge fines,
like $10 million.
Millions and millions of dollars. So what Meta said instead was, okay, fine, we won't permit sharing of news links at all.
We will comply with your law.
Yeah.
That's basically what they said. And they looked at the cost of actually paying these people versus the cost of losing the actual revenue, and guess what won out? Losing the revenue. So it was actually cheaper for them to actually block everybody.
the links, yeah.
And now they're complying with the law, but then the Liberals and the news agencies are complaining about it.
Well, because our news media thought that they could bully these big American companies, both Meta and Google, into giving them a share of the revenue because they somehow felt entitled to it. So when Bill C-11 went into force and they couldn't bully Meta, well, they started crying foul.
Like, have you met Mark Zuckerberg? You think threatening him is going to work? No, we're no fan of Mark Zuckerberg. We're no fan of Facebook. We're no fan of YouTube. We have a heck of a hard time with them. But at the same time, what are you expecting to happen? So yeah, this wasn't going to go anywhere. But this is why we're big fans of the Canadian Constitution Foundation, because they do amazing work. They're not partisan. And if the Conservatives get in and they start doing some wacky stuff when it comes to free speech and things that, threaten the Constitution, they're going to be calling that out as well.
I don't anticipate that they will. What I anticipate is that the Conservatives are going to repeal bills C-18 and C-11, and they're just going to throw C-63 in the trash because it's not even going to get to the point of becoming law. But I anticipate that they're going to stand up for our free speech and our freedoms in Canada and just get rid of all these garbage bills that the Liberals have put in.
Well, and if you like the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, they focus on all things financial and protect the taxpayer. Canadian Constitution Foundation is basically a close sibling of theirs, but their role is to protect Canadians' freedoms as it relates to the Constitution. So phenomenal performance, Christine, in committee, despite that barrage of insanity from Talib Noor Mohammed. And by the way, Talib Noor Mohammed, this is the same guy who was basically threatening the National Post because they published something bad about the Liberal and saying, we pay you, right?
Yes.
So this is the same guy.
That's a huge thing. And again, we firmly believe that media should not be government funded at all. Because then you get stuff like that where you're saying, well, we're paying your salary, so you have to say what we want you to say. And
yet the Liberals have the gall to say, well, they're independent media with a straight face, when you have actual Liberal MPs saying things like that to these media organizations. Right.